Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Epic Generation Science Adventure. So far, we've featured the latest work of two scientists from the Defence Research and Development Canada on space mission design and human factors. Today, we're going to learn another field of study that helps us keep us safe, that is, biochemistry.
Our featured scientist spent 4 years at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. First, as a senior science advisor, and then as a national manager of research and strategies. She is currently interested in finding new ways to keep Canadians safe from potential chemical and biological threats and hazards. Let's meet a defense scientist from DRDC, Dr. Loren Matheson.
Let's start with a question. I want to know what you guys think when you hear the word scientist. So what pops into your head when you think scientist or chemist or biochemist? What does that look like to you? Kyle, you have your hand up. What do you think?
It looks like you you deal with things that are living and chemistry.
Okay. So that's what we work on. And do you have an image of what a scientist looks like? When I asked Connor, this is what he told me. He said, I think scientists has big gray hair, and they look at test tubes with colored liquid and lots of smoke coming out of it. And I said, wow, you know what? I worked in a lab a while ago, but I don't work in a lab anymore. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do. One of the reasons that I decided to go into science was that I love to ask questions. I wanted to know how things work. I became interested in how our bodies work and what's going on inside our cells. So I went to graduate school here in Ottawa. I did a PhD in biochemistry, and I got to see things through a microscope that no one had ever really seen before. I really liked discovering new things. And since then, I have done a lot of different work, but I get to go to conferences. I get to work with really smart people who have great ideas. And one of the best parts of my job is participating in events like this, where I get to communicate with kids and other people and tell them how cool science is. So these are some pictures of me doing things. So on the left hand of the screen there, I'm dressed up in a personal protective suit when I was going into a lab because I wanted to protect myself from the viruses and bacteria that the other scientists were working on. So I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. There's little cartoons here of me that the government made to promote science. So those are some pictures. And this is the fun part. And then there's also other parts of my day that look like this, where I get to go to lots of meetings. And some people say, wow, that's really boring. You just get to sit around a table and talk all day, and that's not fun. But actually, I think this is really interesting. It's fascinating. You sit down with smart people who have really great ideas, and you try to solve problems together. So even though it may not seem super exciting, I do think it's a really important part of the job. It is called the Center for Security Science. And what we do is we're part of the government within the Department of National Defense that has a lot of experts in many different science fields. So chemistry, biology, explosives, natural disasters like fire, forest fires, cybersecurity, and lots of other things. Part of our job is to really think through things that could happen in the future. So we're trying to figure out new ways to prevent bad things from happening, essentially. Another part of our job is to really be ready to stop as many bad things as possible from happening, and then develop new ways to deal with any bad things that can't be stopped. So I'm going to go through a couple of examples. Another part of my job is to think through those challenges that we know we can't solve all by ourselves, and to engage other people to help us. So we work on a program called the Canadian Safety and Security Program, which is essentially we have some money and we give it out to other government scientists to work with us. And we work on solutions to problems that we are both interested in. And so we really try to make sure that scientists are talking to each other to share their ideas, and then make sure everybody knows what to do in an emergency. So here I wanted to give you an example of a project that I worked on. This is a picture of a lab, the most secure lab in all of Canada, this big white building. It's located in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And it belongs to Public Health Agency of Canada and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And these are where the scientists who work on the most dangerous viruses, this is where they work. And when they go into the lab to work on those things, they have to wear a special suit. And I've got pictures of all these suits on this slide. And part of a project that I worked on was to look at all of these different suits and decide which one was the best one to protect our scientists. So we measured all kinds of different things about each of these suits, and then made a decision about which suit was going to be the best. So this is just one example of how we work together to figure out ways to protect our colleagues. And with this project, I got to work on people from other countries as well, because they were interested in what our decisions were around which suit was the best.
Dr. Matheson's job is very interesting, and imagine the big responsibility her and her team has in making sure nothing bad happens to us. So what if something unexpected happens?
What if all of a sudden the power went out? And what if all your electronics were dead? Would you be upset? I know that I have boys in my household who wouldn't be happy if they couldn't play Minecraft. And Kyle, I know you said you like Minecraft at the beginning. What do you think? What would you do if all of a sudden no power, no electronics, and you weren't happy?
So what time of the day would it be?
Let's say this power outage was going on for a long time. So it's days. You don't know. Okay, now that you've thought you're not happy, right? You can't use your. So what happens if let's change the scenario. What happens if in 2 days from now, I tell you, Kyle, the power is going to go out in 2 days from now? What do you do? What do you do to prepare?
From the previous scenario, they're saying play outside, Caden and Adeline. And yeah.
Good. So you just do something different, right? But what if it keeps happening? So, but what now if you have new information? What if you know the power is going to go out in 2 days from now? Is there something you can do to prepare?
Charge all your devices.
You could charge all your devices. That would help you prepare. Raylan?
I was going to say to charge the devices.
Good idea. Marie?
Get flashlights or anything that you can get light from.
Good
Maybe
idea.
Some foods that don't need to be cooled.
Perfect. So you thought about this. That's really good. So you've thought about something that could happen in the future that it may or may not happen, but you've thought about it and you've prepared for it. So those are really good ideas. Exactly. You could get flashlights together. You need to get some food that doesn't need to be heated. You need to charge your devices so that you know that you're ready for that power outage. So the point in thinking about this is that you've thought about the scenario in advance and it helps you to be prepared. You get less upset because you're organized. And that's similar to what we do. We try to think about what could go wrong and then we prepare. And I thought I would give you another example. So this is what we do every day. Imagine that you're just learning to skateboard, for example. Think about what could happen when you get on that board. In this little GIF, we've got this person falling down. So you get on a skateboard, you don't know how to skateboard, you could fall off, you could hurt yourself. So now let's think about it. What can you do to prepare? Maybe you put on a helmet. So now you get back on the skateboard, you've got your head protected. So you're going to protect yourself from falling. But the helmet doesn't do it all for you. What if you still fall off and you scrape your knee? You have to respond to that scraped knee. You might be bleeding a little bit. You need to clean your scrape up. You might need a Band-Aid. So there's the response to something that happened. You prepared, but you didn't prepare for everything. You still went skateboarding, you still scraped your knee. Now you have to respond to it. And then what do you do after you've healed? What do you do next after that? Well, you could get back on your skateboard, but really you could be even better prepared by maybe you want to bring wrist guards this time so that you are better prepared to prevent your wrists from getting hurt. You want to wear your helmet. You want to practice more. There's things that you can do after the fact to recover. So these are things that we think about every day with all different kinds of scenarios.
Maybe if there's like an earthquake.
So that earthquake hasn't happened yet. What could you do? What could you do to prepare yourself for that earthquake?
Maybe look at the news.
Right? You could find out when it's coming so that you know how much time you have. Somebody's saying evacuate. I'm looking at the chat now. I didn't have the chat up before.
Last say wear protection.
Somebody's saying pack and run, a hurricane. I love these answers. So you're thinking. Kyle, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that I don't think hurricanes, I don't know, I don't think earthquakes happen in Canada. Like, not like where we're located.
We've had small earthquakes, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen. Something like that could, and it depends on where you are. Good. So do you think that do you see now we're thinking about things in advance really could help you be ready? So somebody's saying COVID. COVID is a good example, right? We think a lot about viruses that are out there and ways to protect us from ways to protect Canada, ways to protect other places in the world. We think lots and lots about that. Flood, that's a good one. If you're near areas that might flood, you have to be careful of that. These are all really, really good answers. So tsunami, I like it. So really at the Center for Security Science, we have all of these experts. We do lots of thinking about what could happen. We want to prepare, we want to prevent, we want to respond, we want to be able to recover afterwards from all of these things. So this is really what I wanted to let you know about what we do. Another way to think about it is really like, what if we had a crystal ball? What we try and do is think about what happens in the future. We collect all of this information to understand the risk of something happening. And then based on that, we can offer choices, or we develop new technologies, or we do more science to investigate. And these things all help families and communities and the government make decisions on how to prepare for that event. So many of you, actually, another example, many of you would have discussed a fire safety plan with your family. It's kind of like that. There's a very, very low chance that you'll ever have to use that plan to deal with a fire at your house, but you still discuss it. You know what to do. You know how to get out of your house safely and where to meet. And that just in case plan is really, really important. It's very similar to what we do at the Center for Security Science, but on a much larger scale. first thing I wanted to tell everybody was that scientists really do lots of science outside of the lab too. Lots of people think of scientists who wear a lab coat and work with test tubes. But there's lots of science that happens outside of the lab. And the government needs lots of smart people to go into science so that they can contribute to all of these problems that we're thinking about. And really the big take-home message here is that although there might be small risk of something bad happening in the future, what you really can and should feel safe, because myself and my colleagues and the other two that you heard from tonight, we're always thinking through things that could happen in order to prepare, prevent, and respond. So that's what I wanted to share, but I want to hear what you have to think, what you have to say too. Do you have any questions?
Glorianne had her hand up.
Now, I have a question that's similar to the questions you've asked us, but I want to hear it from your point of view. What natural disaster do you think Canada should be prepared for, and how should we prepare?
Good question. So I work with people who work on preparation around forest fires, for example. And I think that as far as natural disasters go and the changing climate, you guys have probably heard about climate change, right? There's more risk to an increasing number of forest fires, especially out west. So like Alberta and British Columbia, there's often forest fires out there. So we work to help communities, especially communities that are very small, who don't have their own firefighters, for example. We work with those communities to help them prepare for what would happen if they needed to evacuate, so that they know what the plan is in case there is a forest fire.
Prepare, prevent, respond. That's good to remember, because you'll never know what can happen. Raylan, what do you think?
Oh, I agree with you, Kyle. Preparation is important. In fact, my family has a 72-hour emergency kit. See this? I've got my flashlight, my first aid kit, my blanket, and they're going in my backpack, so I'm ready anytime, anywhere.
That's a really good idea. I better prepare one too. Well, this has been another great learning episode with our DRDC scientists, and we hope you enjoyed. We hope you can join us on the next adventure for Epic Generation Unlocked.